we have things like something where till now we have seen two parties, say A and B. I'm calling it as Anshuman and Barkha here, so I don't follow English conventions. It's all pure Desi things. So the side is Anshuman, this side is Barkha. So until now, what was happening is Anshuman and Barkha were having the same keys, right? In all the things in symmetric crypto, what do you mean by symmetry? Keys are the same. So what we have to do to get symmetric is you have to get this key from here to here or from here to here, or you have to agree on a common key. Suppose you trust me, okay, I'll provide you with the key. Both. Can I do that? Can I do that? Yes or no? Yes. But the question is, how much do you trust me? So once I am compromised, all your communications will be compromised. So you cannot do that. So this is one reason we have something called asymmetric cryptography. So that is the first question which I will be addressing is why public key cryptography, which is the answer to the other question like which he asked at the end, how to share symmetric keys. We use public key cryptography or asymmetric cryptography. I mean, by asymmetry, you know what is asymmetry? If symmetry is both the parties having the same key, what do you mean by asymmetry? Asymmetry means both the parties will be having different keys. But the catch here is when there is asymmetry, we should compromise something called equality also. So somebody will be the authority of the key and somebody will be the user. It will be not a peer-to-peer scenario. This will be a client-to-server like scenario. Somebody will be having authority on something. Like it's like a, we'll see some classic examples. Say the mailbox. You know, your email ID, mailbox, or like your physical mailbox. So how do you keep a mailbox? Your mailboxes will be kept in such a way that it's locked on one side and there will be a slit, so that you can slip in the mail, the letters, whatever it is. So whoever puts the letter in it, like if you don't have a mailbox of your own, you can just think about the post office, post boxes. Not that right. So we just go to the post office or post box, we slip in the thing, and who can get the thing back? Can we do that once we slip that in? So the issue with main difference between symmetric and asymmetric thing is that once we have encrypted the thing, we cannot change the thing or we cannot take it back. We have to re-encrypt it again. Suppose the same analogy. You are sending a letter. Suppose you made a mistake on the letter. So what are you supposed to do again? You ask an apology that the letter was wrong, consider the new letter, so you send a new letter. The only thing which can be done in asymmetric cryptography is once you send the thing, once you encrypt it, just ignore it and re-encrypt once you made a mistake. Fine. So you can have another example, say I told you about like authority and like user. See, we consider the example of all know padlocks, right? Padlocks, locks. The one we like spring padlocks, we'll click and lock. So suppose I'm having some 10 number of padlocks. I have all the keys to them. So I am just giving each of you, how many of you? 30 are there. So I have 30 number of padlocks. I am giving each of you a padlock each. Okay, without the key. So you are putting your message in the box and putting the padlock over the box and you are locking it. Once locked, can you reopen that? Once the padlock is pressed and locked, can you reopen that? No, it's out of your hands now. So now who can reopen that? Only the person with the key, that is me. So that is the difference. So who is the authority here? So the one possesses the secret key, or the channel is called the secret key to the communication is called is the authority, and the other person is the user. So it's like a server to client scenario where you people are the mass and I am the person who is holding the secret key, where I am the responsible for maintaining the key and security of it. Okay. So symmetric keys are actually, why public keys, like we see, as you see, we'll just consider the analogy again. So putting a padlock, giving it to you is, as you know, how much effort we have to put in to do that, right? So can I give each and everyone a padlock every time? So if it is costly or if it is strenuous, we'll actually do it once it is very necessary, right? Do everybody use atom bombs always per day in World War? Will they? They will use it at the time when there is no other go. So the thing is, these are things which is to be done only when there is absolutely a need for this. Okay. So symmetric keys are actually, we use it for session by session. We change symmetric keys. But in asymmetric keys, actually we use this asymmetric key setting to do the exchange of symmetric keys. Okay. By exchange, I'm not saying I'm forgetting like agreement. There can be key agreement also. Fine. So the question is, what is public and private? Anyway, I told you this already. The story of Anshuman and Barkha. So Barkha can send Anshuman messages using his public key. That is, Anshuman has a padlock given to Barkha or Anlogi. So Barkha will be using that. So Anshuman will have already given the padlock, and Barkha will be using that padlock to put the message in a box and lock it with the padlock and send it back to Anshuman again. So only Anshuman and nobody except Anshuman can open this thing unless there is a duplicate of the key, which we assume it's not there. Okay. So of course that is why it's non-transferable. Anshuman cannot give that to anybody else unless he trusts. Anshuman can be anybody, can be an organization, it can be a person, depends. Fine. So now before we begin, the thing which we have seen until now was like structures, properly engineered and well ordered structures to make keys, to make symmetric keys. Now before we begin asymmetric cryptography, I warn you, this is purely mathematical cryptography. We'll be doing like the problems or the security of the crypto system is actually based on not the design, it's obviously on the design, but it will be mostly based on the fundamental, and the fundamental is some mathematical problem. Okay. So can you go through the checklist and you know which part you don't know? You know group structures? Do you know? Everybody? Anybody who don't know group structure? Okay, cyclic groups. Generators of cyclic groups. Order of a group and order of an element. Euler phi function. Integer factorization problem. Can you tell me that? What is integer factorization problem? Somebody please raise your hands and tell me, like, what is an integer factorization problem? What is an integer factorization problem? Please, louder. We have to find the factors of an integer. So why is that problem important? See, this is where we come to the initial story. There is something should be easy one way and hard the other way. See, actually while we make the key, see what do we do? It should be easy for me once I have the key. So once I don't have the key, I cannot open, it's hard. So this is what we call one way and trapdoor functions. So it's actually like putting a lock is easy. So doing one way operation should be easy. And the other way should be difficult, must be difficult. And it should be viable only when there is a trapdoor. Okay, we call it as one way and trapdoor functions. So it's not two functions, the same function, one way, or we call it as a one way function with a trapdoor. So one way functions are the functions which are easy to compute one way. See, I'm taking two prime numbers, say any number, P1 and P2, whatever, say, let's say I'm getting 17 times 19. So can you tell me the product of 17 times 19? 323. Yes, right. So but if I give you 323 and tell me the fact, asking for the factors of it, will you be able to do this fast? Like I'm giving you a number, say 323, and asking you the factors of it. Is it easy? No, exactly. So that is why this is a one way trapdoor function. And what is a trapdoor? We will see. So there is actually, that is why we need phi function. Okay. And what is discrete logarithm problem? First of all, you know all logarithms, right? What is the logarithm? What is logarithm? So if I am having a to the power b equal to c, how do you define log? I am defining log of log of c, log of t, log of c to the, no. For logarithm, it's the base, yeah. Log of c to the power, c to the base a will be b. So physically, what does that mean? Technically, it's finding which power of which power of a gives me c. So log c to the base a means which power of which power of a gives me, which power of the base gives me c. Is this a difficult problem? Like finding logarithm? No. But the catch is, once I put something here, this is an intractable problem. Finding, because see, once you are getting a to the power b mod c, we have options for, let's say, in a normal setting, what we have is, say, I'm taking 2 power 3 equal to 8. So we have methods to take 8 power 1 third. Right, you have options to find cube root of 8. But what is 2 power 3 mod 5? What is 2 power 3 mod 5? Again, another number, say 2 power 3 mod 5 is 3. So we will be cycling on, like we'll be looped inside or trapped inside a loop which takes only integers, and it will be always reduced back to the residue system, which is the numbers between 0 up to p minus 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to p minus 1. So see, sometimes it can be any number a, b, c such that a power b equal to c, where c can be numbers less than a and b. Right? It can happen like that. See, suppose the same thing. I am taking 4 power 2 mod 5 again. 4 power 2 mod 5 will be 1. So it can be the case. So 4 and 2 are greater than 1, but still we are getting 1. So that is kind of a scenario in which we don't expect that. See, this is why discrete logarithm problem is intractable in. So this is the first identified intractable problem to define a trapdoor. Okay. So now this is where we began with asymmetric cryptography. How many of you have heard of this? Like Diffie-Hellman key agreement or key exchange? So okay, please raise down your hands. So the thing is, Diffie-Hellman key exchange is something where we have two parties where they are going to agree on a common key, but they don't have any knowledge on the other party. So the thing is, the issue is that here they have to agree on something prior to this. Like we have seen some particulars before. They have to agree on a cyclic group. They have to agree on a cyclic group and a generator, commonly on a generator, because cyclic groups can have more than one generators. You might have seen this in yesterday's session, have you? Yeah. So it can have multiple number of generators. So the issue by choosing the generator for the user themselves is they might end up choosing different generators. It can happen, right? So in Diffie-Hellman, the thing is, the common should be, the group should be common, the generator should be common, and nothing else. That's it. So each person, suppose n is the order of the group. So what is the order of the group? You told me you know that. So what is the order of the group? Please come again louder. Exactly, the number of elements on the group. So we can choose any number up from 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n minus 1. This means the notation n on square braces means all integers from 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n minus 1 is written there. Fine. You can choose any number from the set 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n minus 1. He can choose, suppose Anshuman is choosing a number a, and he'll be taking g power a mod q, where we are doing this multiplicative cyclic group modulo a prime q. Okay. So I am not specifically focusing on something called zq star. You might have seen that also yesterday, zq star. It can be any cyclic subgroup of zq star, because we don't believe in going for the full group. Why? We'll see why. Just have a note of this thing, why we are not going for the full group. We'll come back to it. So Anshuman will be choosing a randomly from 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n minus 1, and he will be taking g power a modulo q, and the a value which he chose remains his secret key, whereas the G power A value is actually the public information. So that is the public and private key here. And he will be sending G power B, so G power A mod Q, which is public key of A, to Barkha. Simultaneously, Barkha will be doing the same thing on the other side. She will be choosing a B from randomly from 1 to 3 etc. up to n minus 1. She will be taking power G power B mod P, which is the public key of Barkha. She will be sending that back to Anshuman. So now they have something shared and something on their own. So they have public information which is shared. So actually the thing is, why this is a public thing? So with the same thing, suppose Charles is also coming in between as a legitimate user. We are not going for the attacks. As a legitimate user, Anshuman on Barkha can again use the same thing, same public information to create a key with Charles also, right? So what happens after this? So they will be changing G power A and G power B each other, and Anshuman will be computing public key of Barkha to the power his secret key, which is G power B the whole power A, that is G power AB on one side, and Barkha will be computing public key of A the whole power her secret key, this is G power A the whole power B, which is G power AB mod Q again, which they ended up getting the same thing. Got it? Without even knowing anything about their secrets, they ended up having a common thing. But now coming back to the other scenario where some other legitimate user Charles is there, let it be, and Anshuman and Barkha all want to communicate with Charles. Maybe it's not a group conference, like they want individual pairwise communication. So they can retain this thing and they can ask Charles to choose a number again C. He will be computing G power C, which is his public key, and Anshuman will be having a common key agreed to G power AC. Like Anshuman and Charles will be having a common key G power AC by the same protocol, and Barkha and Charles will be having something called G power BC. Are you following? Like, am I going too fast? All good, right? So that is why this is public, right? Any users can have this, but depending on the group size and all, like there should be a limit on users, and we don't entertain like multiple users having the same key, because there can be like adversarial, like there can be adversarial interferences. We cannot trust all the users. Legitimacy of the user is a question mark. So we will do secret key normally. Like when they introduced it, they said it's like common, it's confined to 2 people, right? Any questions on that? Yeah, please. Actually, security is ensured by actually, see the last problem. We have seen it here. See, if you are given 2 power something equal to 8, so 2 power something equal to 3, I am giving you 3 and 2. Which power of 2 gives me 3? So you cannot say which power of on a higher setting. This you can say. So on a higher setting you don't know. So similarly, here actually what happens is we have public knowledge information is G power A and G power B. From the given G power A and G power B, the problem, the discrete logarithm problem is it is hard or impossible, they said. Now it's not, but impossible to find A value out of G power A. So that is the discrete logarithm problem, and that is what we discussed at the beginning of the session. That is, this is not based on the design, but the mathematical hard problem behind it is actually holding this secure. That's a good question. I appreciate that. Thank you. So that is the hard problem, mathematical hard problem, discrete logarithm problem is actually holding it secure. Clear? So some of the attacks which came in between are like after introduction of Diffie element key exchange, some of the attacks came after that as man in the middle attack. Suppose we call it as man in the middle attack also. So what happens? There is a eavesdropper. Say Evelyn. Evelyn comes in between. So Evelyn comes in between, and suppose that, have you seen anywhere that Anshuman is saying I am Anshuman to Barkha and Barkha is saying I am Barkha to Anshuman? No, they are just sending it. Suppose Evelyn comes in between and says to Anshuman, I am Barkha. Say, this is Anshuman, this is Barkha, and I am Evelyn. So Evelyn says, I am Barkha to you and I am Anshuman to you. And I will be choosing a number, say E. I will be computing the public key, of course G power E, because all these are public informations. G, the generator and all are public informations. I'll be choosing a secret key on my own, E. I'll be communicating to you with G power E as well as to you with G power E. So we will be agreeing on something called G power A E, and we will be agreeing on something called G power B E. But the catch is, there is nothing wrong in having a key agreement, right? But what is the wrong here? What is the catch here? What do you think? You think that you are communicating to Barkha, where you think you are communicating to Anshuman, but in effect, who are we communicating to? Both are communicating to me, right? Evelyn, right? So that is the man in the middle attack. So there is some other attack which we call small subgroup attack. So small subgroup attack is actually, if there is, I mean, have you heard of something called brute forcing? Everybody knows that brute forcing, right? So what do you mean by brute forcing? Trying all the combinations of keys. So if I have, say, how many possible keys can be here? Suppose I am given a G power A. How many possible keys can be there? Like how many possible G power ABs can be there for a session key? N can be 0 to n minus 1, n possible keys. So n can be a bigger number, n will be a bigger number. So in any case, if I can reduce my search space, that will be of importance, right? So if I can find a subgroup, that is, since you know cyclic groups, see G generates all the elements. Say it's like the elements will be of the form G, G power 2, G power 3, etc. G power n minus 1. This is the common thing for thing. So this I am writing it as G generated. I am writing it as G generated. So what will be G power k generated if k divides n? What will be G power k generated? G power k generated will be G power k, G power 2k, etc. Again G power n. Say n minus 1. Sorry, n minus 1. Let it be. So G power k will be generating a very small subgroups which is of order n divided by k. So total number divided by k. So that suppose I have like say 24 elements in a group. See G generates 24 elements. So I am taking G power 4. How many elements will G power 4 generate? G power 4 will generate G power 4, G power 8, G power 12, G power 16, G power 20 and G power 24. How many elements? So that is 24 divided by 4, right? So if G power 6 I am taking, how many elements will it generate? 4, because 24 divided by 6. So what happens in a subgroup setting is the adversary comes in between here and he will be playing something G power A he will be doing. So he will be finding G power A, he know the public key. So he will be finding the public key to the power k, right? He will be sending the public key to the power k, and he will be sending public key of A to the power k also. So now what we have is this is G power AK and this is G power BK and this is G power AK. So the common key will be G power, here it will be G power KAB and this is G power KAB. So this is coming under these two, the value G power KAB will come under something called G power K generated, right? So the subgroup, the common key they agreed upon comes under some subgroup which is generated by G power K instead of G. So the search space is drastically reduced to 1/k of the search space which was initially there. So this is something called small subgroup attack. So how will we thwart these attacks? So man in the middle attack we will thwart by having some pre-shared key. So we will using some pre-shared key and HMAC of the session key. We will combine them together and we will use. Details you can search later or like contact me or mail me. We will discuss later. This something to mitigate this pre-shared key. So to mitigate small subgroup attack, we will do something called safe primes, where the primes will be of the form Q is equal to 2p plus 1. So if Q is of 2p plus 1, what is the cardinality of ZQ star? If Q is of the form 2p plus 1 where Q and P are primes, say, I'll give you an example, say 23 equal to P and 47 equal to q. Both are primes, but they are of the form q equal to 2p plus 1. So what is the cardinality of ZQ star? How many elements are there in ZQ star? The cyclic group generated by cyclic group multiplicative cyclic group modulo q. How many elements are there? Should be q minus 1 elements, because all the other numbers will be, since it's a prime, all numbers except 0 will be co-prime to that number and they will be all part of the multiplicative group. So the cardinality will be q minus 1. So q minus 1 is actually 2p. So this has a subgroup of order p. So I am having a subgroup G of order p, where G is a subgroup of ZQ star. So I will be working on G modulo Q. I will not be working ZQ star modulo Q as such, where there is a possibility of a subgroup attack. We will be working on this particular subgroup as the initial. We will be agreeing commonly on a subgroup G, which is a subgroup of ZQ star. Proper subgroup means properly contained in ZQ star. It's not ZQ star. ZQ star is a subgroup, but it's not a proper subgroup. So a proper subgroup, which is again cyclic, and it does not have any more subgroups. Fine. So if you take any p minus 1 will be the cardinality of ZP star, right? So in that case, all the factors of p minus 1 can form orders of subgroups. Say if I am having, say, p is equal to 23 again, maybe we will take 29. I am having 28 as the order of the group. So it can be 2, 4, 7, 14. There are possibilities of group orders, subgroup orders. It can be 2, 4, 7 and 14. So those many subgroup I can make. But in this case, if I am taking q is equal to 2p plus 1, where I am taking ZQ star, where I am having cardinality 2p and I am having a subgroup of order p. Now there is no further subgroups possible, since the cardinality of the group itself is prime and we will be operating modulo q. Clear? So this is one modification to what? Small subgroup attack. Now we have seen something based on discrete logarithm problem we have seen. Now we will see something based on integer factorization problem. See, we have already seen integer factorization problem. Like, what do you mean by integer factorization problem? Finding the factors of any given integer, right? But we won't be going for any given integer. We will be specifically choosing two prime numbers large enough so that we will get a product of that, and it's interactable to get back the primes once given the product number. Clear? So RSA is, there might be very less people who has not heard of RSA. Anybody who have not heard of RSA? Anybody? Anybody who have heard of RSA? Okay, what do you mean by RSA? RSA. Rivas, Shamir and Adelman, these are the names of the developers of the algorithm. Rivas, Shamir and Adelman. And Shamir is actually, I think 2 or 3 of them are still alive. So RSA, what we do is we will choose two primes p and q. We will compute the product n is equal to pq, and we will compute, that is one stage. Fine. So now, how do we generate the keys for encryption and decryption? We have made a platform. Like making n is a setting up a platform. Fine. So now, how do we make a key or a crypto system out of this? Here comes the logic and design, logic of the design. Here comes the design to play, because the problem which we are addressing is, the problem which keeps this secure is the integer factorization problem, but it keeps, the thing which keeps this thing comfortable or like convenient, the word is convenient to use, is the design. Fine. The security is on the problem, whereas the convenience of the user is on the design. Right. So we will be choosing, what is phi of n? Phi of n, Euler phi function. Come again? Louder please. It's p minus 1 when p is prime. So generally, what is phi function? So phi function is defined as the number of elements from 1 to 3 etc. up to n, such that the GCD, GCD, right? The GCD of that number and n should be 1. we use the word co-prime or relatively prime, so that two numbers are having GCD 1 means they are relatively prime. That is, they don't have a common factor greater than 1, strictly greater than 1. So number of elements of such kind is called phi function, phi of n. As she rightly pointed out, question. As she rightly pointed out, said, phi of p will be p minus 1, and this is a linear function. So phi of pq will be phi of p into phi of q. So it will be phi of n will be phi of pq, which will be phi of p into phi of q, which is p minus 1 times q minus 1. So now we will be computing. See, anyway, I will give you a catch of this. You might not know. So whatever things we do modulo n on the base, we will be doing modulo phi of n on the exponent. Wherever be the case. If you are doing it modulo, if you are doing it say on discrete logarithm, on integer factorization, on whatever be the setting be, whatever modulo you have on the base, the exponents will be operated modulo phi of that. This is Euler's famous theorem. We call it Euler's theorem, whereas a and n are relatively prime, then a raised to phi of n is congruent to 1 mod n. So we won't be going forward to that. You might have seen this yesterday, Euler's theorem, right? So this is a corollary, or this is a consequence of Euler's theorem that we have, that the base is operated modulo n implies the powers are operated modulo phi of n. Clear? So we will be finding two numbers E and D such that ED is congruent to 1 mod phi of n. That is, E and D are inverses of each other modulo. What do you mean by inverse? Multiply and you get 1. Right. Inverse of 3 is 1 by 3 in rational numbers. Similarly, inverse of 2 is 3 in modulo 5. Okay, you might have seen this yesterday. Modular inverses. So ED should be congruent to 1 modulo phi of n, and we will be finding the ciphertext. We will choose a message M. We will embed this M, like if you are not even in a group, you have to embed this in as an element of Zn, as an element in Zn. So then we will embed that message into an element of Zn, that is capital M. Then what we will do is we will take M power E modulo n. That will be our ciphertext. And on the other hand, see, E will be public information. N and E will be public information. Capital N as well as the E value will be public information, whereas the private information or the secret information will be the value D. So the person who possesses the value D will be finding C power D modulo N. So what happens when we find C power D? So C power D will be M power E the whole power D mod N, and that will be M power ED mod N. And we have, see, M and C are working modulo N, so ED will be taken modulo, the power will be taken modulo. So if the base is working on modulo N, the powers will be working modulo phi of n, right? This is working modulo phi of n. So we have C power D is equal to M power ED congruent to, so M power ED congruent to M power 1 modulo phi of n. Okay, this is not directly implied from Euler's theorem. There is a catch when there is, we will discuss if there is time in the lab session if we have. So this is the process of RSA encryption. This we call textbook RSA. We call this textbook RSA. So let me ask you this. If I take a message M, I am encrypting to the same person, Anshuman again. I am encrypting to Anshuman. The same message, say hello. So if I am saying thing, and you are all the eavesdroppers. So if I am sending Anshuman the message hello twice or thrice, so will you be able to see a pattern? Like I am sending something, you won't be able to read hello, but you will be able to identify some pattern, right? Right? You will be sending the same thing. So this is what we call deterministic encryption. Each ciphertext corresponding to each plaintext and ciphertext pair will be the same always. So this deterministic means every plaintext corresponds to exactly one ciphertext. Okay. This is what we call deterministic encryption. But will this be of use to us? See, the adversary is actually eagerly waiting to get some information out of this. Okay, so say it's a conversation starter. How will you start a conversation? It's person specific. Somebody will say hello, somebody will say hi, somebody will say yeah, somebody will say like okay. See, there will be a conversation starter always. So once a communication is happening, you'll initiate with salutation or say whatever your personal behavior is, you'll use that word as a communication beginner, opener. So you're encrypting that particular message. If you have a conversation, you'll have that particular word standing upright in front of every messages, right? So you can, the adversary who is observing some communication will be able to find, see, there is something happening, something is going again and again. So obviously he can guess it's some starter, and starters are like say common. So now he can go from reverse, like he can assume this thing and get back. So he can try his keys. So he can, there's a possibility of like say brute forcing if we have this thing. So that is why we don't prefer using deterministic encryption anymore. Anyway, this is the same thing. We'll be using, instead of phi of n, we'll be using something called lambda n. This is advanced, like we'll skip it for now. So decrypting RSA is actually quite a hectic task. Why? Because we'll see in the lab session, the encryption key will be smaller, where the decryption key will be very bigger, way bigger. So if we choose two numbers, ED congruent one mode phi of n, one will be small number and one will be bigger number. So we'll keep bigger number for us, for the decryptor, and smaller number for the public. So what happens is, while decrypting, it's not directly finding C power D is not that easy. So there is a method of using Chinese remainder theorem to find this. So again, this thing also we'll do. Just this is, there's a method and this is how the method works mathematically. So we'll just see if possible. Okay. So now what we have as an answer to the question, which was how the adversary learns things from deterministic encryption. So we have something called probabilistic encryption, where each message will be encrypted to different ciphertexts. So if I am sending hello twice, we'll be seeing two different ciphertexts instead of the same thing. So that is what we call probabilistic encryption, whereas there is a number of choices for the ciphertext for the corresponding to the same plain text. Okay, so PKCS1 is actually one modification or amendment made to RSA, textbook RSA, in which they use some padding called optimal asymmetric encryption padding. We call it as RSA OAEP, or you can call it as PKCS1. That means Public Key Cryptography Standards number 1. This is version 2. So there will be a key generation, public key, privacy key generation. Then the encryption will be happening. They will be choosing a message and they will be choosing a random number R of a particular length. So they will be finding S value, which is M concatenated with number of zeros, which is the same number of value of G power R. G is the function which I defined. G is defined from 0, 1. G is defined from, if this notation is inconvenient, you can just think about this as, sorry. You can think about this as the function from strings of length k0 to strings of length k1, all 0, 1 strings of length k0 to string of length k1. So G power R will be taking an input, G will be taking an input of strings of length k0 and putting an output of strings of length k1. So G power R will be of length k1. So that is why we are having S is padded with, S is made by padding M with k1 number of zeros and will be XORed to G power, XORed with G power R, so G of R. Excuse me, it's not G power R, it's G of R. So we'll be getting then T is equal to R plus H of S, where H is a function again which is defined there. It's a reverse function. Okay, so now the decryption is actually, we'll be having decryption of ciphertext, will be parsing it into S and T, where we have R equal to T plus H of S and M is equal to S plus G of R, where if we pass it and try to find M, if we are getting after getting M, and we'll be finding G power R, so G of R, and we'll be XORing it to the value of S, So even after getting S XORed with G power R, I will be checking one thing. If I am having all the last K1 bits 0 or not. If not, we can ensure that there occurred a tampering. See, what I have given is all 0, K1 zeros at the end. So if I am getting something other than that, we can understand that there is a tampering. Or we got a different G of R. So in both the cases, we will abort the communication. So this is what makes asymmetric cryptography costlier, because a small change or small mistake or small like difference will lead to the abortion of the whole session, will output perp. Otherwise, if it is legitimately all zeros, it will be outputting the first. This is, I mean, by this actually this is the least significant K1 bits and this is the most significant N bits. I mean, this notation you might be knowing, right? If not, this means M and subscript K1 will be the least significant K1 bits and M superscript N will be the most significant N bits, which was the length of the message. Now, this is one probabilistic encryption. Why? Because if I take a message M, same message M, if I do the encryption with different R's, am I getting the same C? R is randomly chosen from 0 1 power k naught. R is a randomly chosen string of length k naught. So are we getting the same ciphertext C there while encrypting? See, S and T both contain the value R. So R is randomly chosen. If I do it subsequently, continuously in a 2 sessions, same message hello, if I am putting that, will I be getting the same thing? No, it depends on the value R. Unless and until R is chosen, same, that won't be same. So we can have different message, different ciphertext corresponding to each message. So that is why we call it as a probabilistic encryption. Clear? And the entropy of, we call it as entropy. So entropy of this system is designed as how many R's can I choose? How many R's can I choose here? Can choose 2 power k naught number of R's. Have the possibility of choosing 2 power, anyway we will leave all 0 and all 1. So 2 power k naught minus 2 possibilities of R naught. So my probabilistic encryption gives me an entropy of 1 by 2 power, so entropy of 2 power k minus 2, and the probability of getting the same thing again is 1 over 2 power k naught minus 2, because that is the probability of, see, if you are in a set of 2 power k naught minus 2, what is the set is having cardinality 2 power k naught minus 2. So what is the possibility that some random numbers you select is equal to some select, or suppose you are selecting one number from this and keeping it, return it back to the thing, that is picking with replacement. So replacing back to that. So what is the probability that a secondly picked number is the same as the firstly picked number? You choose a number, say, suppose leave this thing. Suppose you have n elements. You are choosing an element from that. Suppose you have n balls, say n different colors of balls. You can't see that. So you choose one number ball, you see the color, put it back. So if you are choosing again another ball, what is the probability that you are getting the same ball again? The uniform distribution. So how many possibilities of choices I have? 1. We are saying probability is 1. 1 by n. So how many choices I have? I have n choices and all choices are equally likely. Right. So we have 1 by n. So similarly, same thing to correcting the balls. So we have 2 power k naught minus 2 number of choices, and we are getting a repetition is actually 1 over 2 power k naught minus 2, which is like depends on the k naught. So now we do something called L-Gamal encryption, which is like a derivative of something called Diffie-Hellman. We call something as a derivative. L-Gamal is somebody who worked with Diffie and Hellman. So the thing with L-Gamal is, L-Gamal actually is a proper, see, what is the difference between encryption and a key agreement? What is the difference between a public key encryption and a key agreement scheme? See, we have seen a key agreement scheme, Diffie-Hellman key agreement. So what happens there? In a key agreement scheme, they are actually agreeing on a common key. But in an encryption scheme, what happens is, we will be sending a key, a symmetric key, which is selected by me. I will be sending it to the other person. You use my key, right? So key agreement protocols have the involvement of all the participating entities, and they have hand or they have choice over this. And the encryption scheme, asymmetric encryption, the key shared based on asymmetric encryption is chosen by one particular entity. Which one is better? Opinions? Like key agreement is better or key exchange is better? Like not exchange, key sharing is better. How many of you feel that key exchange is, like key agreement is better? Like all the people are having, so 1, 2, okay, 2 are there. So how many of you believe that one person having the whole authority of making key is better? You feel that, why? The sense of course, that is one reason. So the main reason is they have their own advantages depending on the situation. Sometimes it is that both the parties should have a hand on that. But in some case, the malicious user, suppose the other user is malicious, he will use some particularly manipulated messages to retrieve the private key of the other user. So it's sometimes recommended, depending on the situation, recommended to use key sharing, that is make a key, share it with, use this key. Okay, sometimes it's better to use common key agreement. So it depends. So now coming back to the thing, so this is again another encryption scheme based on discrete logarithm problem. So the key generation is, again we are coming back to the same thing, cyclic group modulo P. We have done modulo Q, for a change we are doing modulo P here. So now G is a generator of G and Q is the order of G. Again we will stick to the convention that we will having a subgroup of order, subgroup of prime order. That is why I have changed the convention. It's not n anymore. Like in Diffie-Hellman, if you see it was n. Now we won't be doing for n. So the thing is, we will be creating a cyclic group modulo P of order of prime order. Okay. Now for any 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to q minus 1, I will be choosing a x. I will be computing h equal to g power x modulo p. And similar to Diffie-Hellman, this will be my public information. Public key will be the group G, the value Q, the value G as well as the value H. So unlike the Diffie-Hellman thing, this is not known to everybody. When you are asking for a public key, this will be taken as a package. The group, the prime, we are operating on the generator as well as the public key of the user. And the secret key will be X. That is the same, similar to Diffie-Hellman. Now the encryption works in such a way that similar to RSA, we will embed the message M to some element of the group. Of course, we can only operate on the group elements. So whatever be the messages will be on alphanumeric characters or whatever it is. So we will be encoding it, whichever encoding of your choice, and we will be making it to embed the message to an element M in the group, and we will be choosing a random number Y from 1, 2, 3, etc. up to q minus 1 and computes S equal to h power Y. And he will be also calculating the C1 is actually equal to can you help me with that? Yeah, I'll finish this and I'll break. So just thanks. So I'm having a Y's, actually I'll be choosing randomly Y for Y from 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. up to q minus 1. I'll be computing S is equal to h power Y. And I will be having two parts of ciphertext here, similar to the RSA OAEP where we had S and T. Here we have C1 and C2, where C1 is the G power Y, the random number chosen by the encryptor, as well as the generator chosen by the key holder. So C2 will be M times S. So the decryption, so Anshuman is sending it to Barkha, and Barkha is having the private key. So Barkha will be doing S is equal to C1 power X. What is C1? C1 was G power Y. So C1 power X is H power Y, that is G power XY. G power XY. So she has she has value S. Now she computes S inverse. S inverse can be computed in many ways. S inverse can be directly computed by the modular inverse, Or you can just go for C1 raised to Q minus X, where Q is the modulo operator. Why? Because C1 raised to Q will be, think about it. Okay, so M can be found out by, it's not CS, it's a typo there, it's C2 times S inverse. C2 times S inverse. So if you do C2 times S inverse, that will be, so what was the thing? We had C2 is equal to M dot S. So C2 times S inverse will be M dot S times S inverse modulo Q, of course. This will be M modulo Q. So now they have to decode it from whatever encoding was used, embedding was used. So this is how it was used. So any questions? Because I have covered only one part of public key cryptography. This is very basics of this. This is encryption schemes. Now how to create authenticity is another question, which is achieved by signature schemes. We'll see if we can do that if we have time. So till encryption schemes, any questions, any queries? Like in this thing. Yeah, in this setting actually you have a message M. Say any message, say hello, hi, bye, whatever it is. So it's an hello is something called something of alphabets, right? So if I'm having a group of, say, what do you have in a group? We have numbers, say some number. So maybe we have different types of groups, we have elliptical groups and all. So whatever be the group element, there should be a method to map the group element and the message. So you can take H. H is corresponds to the value A, B, C, D, F, G, H. H is 7 or 8. So you can take 8, or you can take some 2 power 8 or something, like some way you should find so that it's reversible also. So you should find some way to map group element to the message. Fine. So that is, this M is actually the message mapped to the group element. Fine. So we cannot operate on something which is not encoded. That we can see in lab. We'll see one encoder and one encoder, unencoded message. So any other questions? I should have some specific property which makes me unique from the other people. Okay. So you two are there. Suppose so we two are there. So there is one unique property, that is you are a girl and I am a boy, like feminine and masculine. So if you are there, what is the different property? For today you are wearing different dresses. One different property. Maybe some other thing for a general setting you might be of different places. But these are all general properties which doesn't make a person unique in every setting. So similarly in cryptographic setting also we should have something which makes a person identifiable to all the other person. I should be able to prove to others that I am me. So how will I do that? Okay, so this is actually the consequence of a public key crypto system. We call all these things together, we call it public key infrastructure. I mean, we will just specifically don't go to that. So we'll be having signature schemes. See, how will you physically, how will I authenticate myself to you, to a bank, to an organization? How will I do that? I'll put my signature. So my check will be validated if I put my signature on it. If he puts my signature, will that be validated? It will be validated because it's my signature. It's not the person who puts the signature, but it's the signature. So the thing is, you should put the signature correctly. Fine. If I put his signature, sorry, if he put his signature on the thing, listen carefully, I was telling you that if he puts my signature, it's valid again. If he puts his signature on my check, it's not valid. Clear? So that is the difference between forging a signature and an invalid signature. Okay. So forging a signature means he forged my signature first. That made it valid. So forging means creating a signature by a malicious user and making it valid. But creating his own signature on my message is invalid. So invalid signature and forgery are different. Okay, clear. Now we will go back to the content. So RSS signature is one type of signature algorithm where you can just easily connect to RSS signature once you have RSA encryption, once you know RSA encryption. So how did RSA encryption work? We just went with any message M power E mod N. This was RSA encryption, right? And E was known to everybody. Okay. Suppose that I'm instead of M power E, I'm sending some my sign is actually M power D mod N, and I'm signing this. So D is known only to me, right? Who else know D? E and D are there. the public information is N and E are the public information and D is the secret information. So only I know D and N and E is known to everybody. Right. So if I take my signature as M power D mod N, can you regenerate the signature? Can you, somebody else, recreate that? Unless without knowing D. Without knowing D, can you do that? No, right? So the catch is, this is the reverse process of RS encryption. I will be signing with my secret key or the private key, where the users can verify by using the public key, because you are the users. You all have my public key. So if you can just see, if it is, because if I am having my signature somewhere, I will be putting it in a public registry. So you can just compare if the signature I put there and the signature already existing are same or not, right? So on the other hand, in the technical setting, I will only make the signature and my public information is already available. So you can just verify if I have put the signature or somebody else. Okay. So now what is a forgery? I told you what is a forgery. Somebody who is trying to make my message, my signature out of some information, like say, making my signature and making it valid, making a valid signature of me. So there are two types of signature, which is two types of forgery, which we call generally selective forgery and existential forgery. Selective forgery and existential forgery. Selective forgery works in such a way that I will be choosing, the adversary will be choosing a message. Adversary will be choosing a message and he will be finding Anshuman's signature for that particular message. That is selective forgery. He selects the message and obtains a valid signature on that message. Right? It's not obtains from Anshuman. Obtains means he creates a signature of Anshuman on that message. That is selective forgery. But what is existential forgery? Existential forgery means there exist some signatures, so we can make a valid signature out of existing signatures. Suppose I have two messages, say M1 and M2, and I am signing both, say M1 power D and M2 power D mod N. Can you make a signature of some message out of this? Which one? Can I make a signature? You are not following. So we are making a signature scheme where, so can you try to make a signature, valid signature out of this given information? Yes or no? How? You have to just multiply them. So you will get, what are we getting when we multiply? We are getting M1 M2 power D. So this is a valid signature on the message M1 M2. So if I am not getting a signed on a message 60, I will take 15 and 4 and get signed on each other and will multiply. So this is actually what we call homomorphic property of RSA. Homomorphic property of RSA, which lands it in trouble. It's like homomorphic property of RSA. Anyway, this is actually the trending topic, homomorphic encryption. We will not be doing that anything here. This is so advanced. So there is another signature which we call Elgamal signature. But here the catch is Elgamal signature is not directly linked to Elgamal encryption algorithm. But the issue is that the common similarity is that they are all dependent on, see, RSA signature is dependent on integer factorization again, and Elgamal signature is dependent on discrete logarithm. But it is engineered, I told you, the problem is the same. The problem which keeps it secure is the same. But the need and the convenience and the user perspective is addressed in the design. So the design addresses the user perspective, why do we use it, and how comfortable it should be, how convenient it should be, and all those things are coming under design, and security only be taken care by the mathematical hard problem or the interactable problem. So the key generation will be, we'll be having a generator of ZP star, and I'll be having a set A which is ZP star cross ZP minus 1. ZP star cross ZP minus 1 will be a set of elements AB such that, set of all elements AB such that A belongs to ZP star and B belongs to ZP minus 1. So this is what it means by A is equal to ZP star cross ZP minus 1, and K is my signing key, where K is my signature, I mean key, where P, G, A and B are actually, P is the modulo which we are using, G is the generator, A is my secret and beta is my public information. We use for verification. So P, G and beta will consist of my verification key and A will be my signing key. So this is the LGML signatures key generation. So LGML signature is taken, we will be taking a random K from set P minus 1 star. What does it mean by set P minus 1 star? Set P minus 1 star means, have you seen this notation set P star? Yesterday, have you? So all numbers which are coprime to P minus 1. Fine. So all numbers which are coprime to P minus 1. So ZP P minus 1 star will be all numbers less than P minus 1 and coprime to P minus 1, which are invertible modulo P minus 1, where an inverse exists. Remember, we need an inverse. So gamma will be computed by G power K modulo P and delta will be computed by X minus A gamma the whole into K inverse modulo P minus 1. See, K inverse modulo P minus 1 exists only when K and P minus 1 are relatively prime. They should have a GCD 1. Then only we can use something called extended Euclidean algorithm. Have you seen that? So find the inverse of the element, right? So the sign of K on the message X, chosen a random number K, will be gamma comma delta. So if it is a sign, the verification will be X comma gamma delta will be given. That is the message along with the sign is taken as an input. It is verified, that is its outputs true or verified if and only if beta power gamma into gamma power delta should be G power X. So beta power gamma will be G power A gamma and gamma power delta will be, see, beta power gamma will be G power A gamma and gamma power delta will be so we were operating modulo P on gamma, beta and all on the basis. We are operating modulo P. So we were operating modulo P on this thing. So now what will be the operation modulo on the powers? If it is P on the base, what will be on the power? P of P. P of P will be, since P is prime, P of P will be P minus 1. So the thing which is K and K inverse will be operated modulo P minus 1. So K inverse modulo P minus 1 will be, you have taken K inverse should be exists modulo P minus 1. So K inverse will be modulo K times K inverse will be, K times K inverse will be 1 modulo P minus 1, right? So these two combine to become, I am doing this modulo P. So the powers will be done modulo P minus 1. So K and K inverse will cancel out each other and we have G power A gamma on this side and here G power X minus A gamma. When we multiply them together, we have G power X plus A gamma minus A gamma modulo P, which is G power X. So this is the verification. This is how we verify. So you don't have to know why this works. Like, if you don't want to know why this works, just leave it. This is how it works. Fine. You have given as an input X, gamma and delta. So beta power gamma into gamma power delta should be equal to G power X when it's operated modulo P. Right. So these are two signature schemes. And the vulnerability is that once this K value is compromised, the random number K value is reused. If it is reused, it will lead to the leakage of the private key A of the user. Just the reuse of, just a simple thing like a reuse of a random number will lead to the compromise of a secret key. We will see how that works in the lab. Okay. This is the theory and we will see one more forgery on all of this thing we will see in lab. So this is some kind of forgery of that. So so now anybody who wants to see more public key crypto or want to know what is the thrust topics in public key crypto, or currently it is elliptical cryptography, which is an existing standard which is existed for like say 20 years. It has been building up. of specifically TCP pairing based cryptography and isogeny based cryptography. And the other thing is lattice based cryptography, which is the current post quantum standard, one of the current post quantum standard. Have you heard of what post quantum cryptography and all? So the current post quantum standard is something called Kyber, which is based on a lattice based system. So with that I will be concluding. Thank you.